know, Lily, maybe what you need here is another miracle. Maybe we should find Gina's body and resurrect her.
Welcome to week 120 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We finished episode 582, which originally aired Monday, November 10th, 1986. And last week we watched Canon on Wednesday night, as we usually do, and Lenore Kasdorf was in an episode called Photo Finish. She, of course, plays Carolyn on Santa Barbara.
And we have been seeing a lot of Justin lately as we've been watching old episodes of Lois and Clark.
And also, we've been seeing Kyle Secor on St. Elsewhere. He has not showed up yet on Santa Barbara, but I believe he'll be showing up in the next episode, which is good, because I think he's dying on St. Elsewhere. So, there were only 2 storylines today. Let's do Lionel first. Lionel and Jane are excited that their Seismosaurus has been accepted by a museum in Los Angeles. Lionel invites Carolyn to help them celebrate, but then Carolyn sees the look on Jane's face and decides to decline the invitation. Of course, Lionel realizes that Jane had something to do with that and tries to tell Jane that Carolyn truly cares for her. Jane tells him that Caroline is using her famous technique on him, and he says he does not think that Carolyn is playing him. Later, Carolyn tells Lionel that maybe she is using her technique without even realizing it, because it's become second nature. Carolyn asks Jane what she wants from her, and Jane says, "I want you to be there for my 13th birthday," among another list of events that Carolyn was not present for. Carolyn tells Lionel that she had an affair with Cece. Now, Jane and Carolyn hugged at the end of that talk, so I wonder if they've started to patch up their relationship. But of course, if I know soap operas, another shoe is going to drop that might push Jane away again.
Yes, and who knows what this revelation about CC will do to Carolyn's relationship with Lionel.
Lionel seemed to be okay with it. All he said to her was, it was a long time ago, right? So we will see if there's more to the story. And of course, the other storyline in today's episode was Gina being shot. Mason stumbles across Gina's body and gets blood on his hands. So we were completely wrong with our, theories, because this was used as a murder mystery episode. I guess they thought it would be fun to do a murder mystery episode with Mason as the sleuth. He was promptly knocked on the head, and when he came to, Gina's body was gone. So he was trying to find a murderer, and he had a number of different suspects, either that he saw or that other people saw, including Sophia, Cece, Keith, and Lily. Ted and Haley show up to help him look at clues, and he enlists Brandon to make notes of who arrived back at the mansion at what time and in what state. And he reports back that Cece had cut his hand and Sophia had muddy boots. So they're all gathered into the study for a big reveal. Not as exciting as the Channing murder reveal, but he ends up, working his way through the suspects, and Cece appears to have a reasonable explanation, and so does Sophia and Keith. And then there seems to be a hole in Lily's story, and just as he turns on Lily, we see outside the window Gina watching from outside the study.
This is almost the exact opposite to the way they approached the Channing murder, in which we had a whole season of flashbacks and seeing Channing lying there and all the things leading up to it. And this one, nearly all the action or purported action happens off screen between the last episode and this one. And I actually was a little bit taken aback by, that gap, because so often in soap operas they'll do a reprise line by line of the final scene, and this was not like that at all.
As each person told their story, we got a little flashback. Of course, it was in that really foggy beach bar. So, Cece told his story, but then Mason says, no, this could have gone this way. And then Sophia, and then Keith, and then Lily. So, Yeah, we're still not sure exactly what happened, but I'm thinking maybe Gina and Lily concocted something to make it seem like she was dead, so that, I don't know, Cece would stop hounding her. And I guess I've lost track of the tape, because the tape was lying next to Gina's body. Mason was reaching for it when he was knocked out, and then, of course, Gina and the tape vanished. So, presumably, Gina has the tape if that was all an act, but if she actually was shot and was injured, then someone else may have the tape.
Find out.
Maybe we'll find out. So that was a very quick summary, because the murder mystery was took up most of the episode, and I, basically compressed it down. So we will be back very shortly after we watch episode 583, the November 11th episode of 1986. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Well, I suppose the two of you will be marching down the aisle before rigor mortis sets in on poor Gina, huh?
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 583 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, November 11th, 1986. And in one of our nightly shows, was it Canon? We saw Richard Hatch.
It was The Rookies, actually.
Rookies.
And he played a villain. He played a fellow who was, I guess, criminally insane. Mm-hmm. And, of course, was threatening Kate Jackson's character.
That's right.
And Kate Jackson's character, if you've ever watched The Rookies, pretty much gets threatened almost every week.
Stephen Slade is the character that Richard Hatch will be playing in a few years on Santa Barbara. And I feel like we saw Lenore Kasdorf in something a while back, but forgot to mention it.
And, of course, we've been watching Pearl's brother on St. Elsewhere.
Kyle Secor, his character died in the last episode we saw. We were very close to the end of St. Elsewhere. We have only one episode left. So I've already started saying goodbye to some of the characters. Elliot Axelrod is off the show, and this week Kyle Chandler? No. Chandler? Robert Chandler? What's the actor's name? Denzel Washington's character left the show with Alfre Woodard. So we will see what they do in the finale to wrap up all these storylines.
And, of course, Kyle Secor is probably even more well known for his time on Homicide: Life on the Street.
And Kyle Secor makes his first appearance, I think, in today's episode of Santa Barbara. Pearl decides to go back to the bookstore, and a man, meanwhile, sneaks into the motel and watches Alice sleep. He says her name, Alice, so clearly it's Brian. Pearl tells Sybil that his brother definitely wrote that book. He leaves the bookstore, and Brian appears. Must be a short distance to that motel. Sybil tells him that he should just talk to Pearl, but Brian tells her he broke it off with his family a long time ago. Sybil visits the hotel and admits that she didn't write the books, but that she knew Brian under another name and would just send him money in New York and has no idea where he is or how to contact him. Clearly, Brian told her to say that. When she leaves, Pearl tells Alice that it's odd that Sybil didn't call the police when he broke into her bookstore. So he thinks that Sybil must be hiding something. So Pearl has not been put off the trail. By the way, Brian is being played by Kyle Secor. Hey, that's why we've been talking about him so much. While Pearl tells Alice how much fun he had growing up with Brian and that he never got a chance to set things straight with him, but he's my brother and I love him. Brian is telling Sybil exactly the opposite, that Michael was always concerned with their position in society, much like his parents, and that Michael was the one who gave him the money for the abortion that killed his girlfriend, and he came to see everything that Michael did was malicious. He may be my brother, but any love there was between us died long ago. So this is not going to be a quick, happy family reunion. I feel like maybe Alice is maybe the key, because he doesn't theoretically have any animosity to Alice, so he may try to sneak to see her when Pearl is off or something, and maybe Alice will tell him that Pearl has changed. I think Sybil actually said, based on the way Pearl's been dressed when she's met him, etc., that she doesn't think he's the same as he was. I wonder if these things will happen in, where are they? Santa Cruz or something? I don't know. Or if they'll head back to Santa Barbara and Brian will follow them, maybe just to touch base with Alice.
Could be.
I don't think Sybil is in more than 2 or 3 episodes. So. Eden finds out that visibility is too poor to search for Cruz and Victoria. Uh-oh. She spends the day talking to various people about how she thinks that her relationship with Cruz will be ruined by this.
More time for Cruz and Victoria to get to know each other better on that island.
Cruz tells Victoria he doesn't want another shot of whatever it was that she gave him because it's giving him weird hallucinations. But by the end of the day, he's in so much pain that Victoria reluctantly gives him another shot. And of course, the episode starts and ends with the hallucinating Cruz thinking he's making love with Eden, but really kissing and saying I love you to Victoria, although this episode ends with him saying I love you, Eden, which really kind of makes Victoria annoyed. So it's not clear whether she's actually had sex with him during any of these times, but the fact that she keeps giving him more shot means, I think, that maybe if she's been resisting it, there will come a time when she won't resist it.
Oh no, I mean, I seem to remember having morphine once, maybe after some surgery or something, and just being out. So I feel like she wouldn't have a great experience with Cruz, even if they were intimate.
Well, we'll see. Of course, we're in the middle of a murder mystery. While Gina watches through the window, Mason and Cece try to get Lily to tell them what happened. They're more concerned with what happened to the tape than Gina, really. We'll skip over this because basically it's a lot of accusations similar to the last episode. Lily's really the last suspect on the list that they go through. Keith chimes in at one point with, maybe we need another miracle. We could find Gina's body and you can resurrect her. Cece then starts to suspect that Lily and Keith may be in this whole thing together. Keith causing Lily to run out and Keith to run after her. Keith tells Lily that he can keep her from being prosecuted for Gina's murder if she gives him the tape. Keith doesn't seem to be all that sad about Gina being dead. Of course, up to this point, we suspect that Lily probably knows Gina's alive, and but the cards are not being shown just yet. Back in the study, Cece tells the family that they'll just act as if Gina left town. Mason says if she's alive, she'll show up at the wedding. And I think Cece's thinking that he'll have some people, it's hard to have someone out searching for Gina and also telling the story that Gina's out of town. So that's actually going to make it difficult for Cece to hunt for Gina if that's the story they're going to give out. Haley thinks that one of these Capwells killed Gina and runs out. Ted runs after her and says that if one of his parents killed Gina, it was probably an accident. Haley basically says you're just going to protect any of those people because they're your family, and that's how I feel about Gina. So that's why I feel we need to call the police, and I've already done it. Ted begs her to give them time to find the tape for Kelly's sake, and Haley agrees to wait for 24 hours. And as the sirens approach, they leave the area. I think they're back at the beach bar. I can't quite remember. So I'm guessing that unless Gina reveals herself to Haley, Haley will continue to think Gina is dead and continue to have trouble with Ted that really doesn't need to be there. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking it's in Gina's best interest to stay hidden until the wedding at this point. And we see Lily have a flashback where we see what really did happen at the beach bar. Lily did grab the tape after we find out that it was Gina. Gina was the one that knocked out Mason. Mason bent over Gina's supposedly dead body, spotted the tape, went over there, and then Gina popped up and bashed him in the head. And in that confusion, Lily ran over and grabbed the tape herself. And of course, we saw that Lily also still had the gun. And they end up, Gina and Lily end up talking while Mason's lying there. And Gina threatens to put Lily in jail. Lily says she'll return the tape in exchange for 3 things. 1, she wants to perform Gina and Cece's wedding. 2, she wants the Capwells to announce their renewed faith in her. And 3, she wants 50% of the money. Gina says, well, I was already going to give you the money anyway. But Gina agrees. And then Lily says she'll hand over the tape on the wedding day. So we see all this in the flashback, but then later we see Gina at her motel room, and Lily shows up and tells Gina that she knows of a farm about 25 miles out of town where Gina can hide until the wedding. And the first thing I thought of was Warren Lockridge's farm that we haven't heard of since whoever was hiding there.
Yeah, that was a while back.
Gina asks for her gun back, and new plan out of nowhere, she hides the gun under Sophia's pillow so that Cece will find it and think she's the one who killed Gina. So it's only like 3 days from the wedding, but I think Gina's just thinking it will put some tension between them for a couple of days while she's out at that farm. For someone who's supposed to be playing dead, she's certainly skulking around the Capwell mansion a lot.
Yeah.
So I think Gina hangs out to see, what Cece does when he finds the gun, but presumably she'll be hiding out at that farm for the next few days. And she will not be able to witness the tension between Cece and Sophia, but maybe she's hoping it'll be enough to get them to break up before the wedding, so she won't have to deal with that. And that is it for this Tuesday episode. We have the full cast credits today. And as usual, Rosa is still in the credits, so I'm not quite sure what her status is. Kelly is still in the credits. Someone has been removed from the credits. I forget who it was already. But Kyle Secor is now in the credits, alphabetically in that same slot as the person that we lost. Brian Bradford, as played by Kyle Secor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I don't even know who we lost.
And that's Kyle Secor's first big break, I think, if you look in IMDb.
Sybil Jordan is played by Michelle Nicastro, as we mentioned, a future Sasha Schmidt. And Grimes, I don't even remember who that was, played by J.P. Bumstead. Who was Grimes? I don't remember. Must have been in this episode, though. Maybe someone related to the airplane or probably the Coast Guard guy. All right, that is it. The wedding comes ever closer. It's Wednesday. I'm assuming the wedding will be on a Friday, for a Friday cliffhanger. So next episode is Wednesday, November 12th, episode 584. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
But you can't practice here. No, you're going to disturb my animals.
You don't own this farm. We rent this place for rehearsal.
Well, then you must know my daughter, Lily Light.
That sounds like a beer. So who are you, Mother Light?
I could help your career. I'm a very influential woman. I don't always sleep in barns.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We've watched episode 584 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, November 12th, 1986. And since the last recording, we've seen several Santa Barbara actors in our various evening shows. We saw Ian Abercrombie, who played Philip the Butler, on season 4 premiere of Canon, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. We saw Bernard White, Angel, on several episodes of Knots Landing as we approach the end of season 9. We saw Lloyd Bochner somewhere, but I can't remember where. Same with, we saw someone on Falcon Crest, too. Do you remember who that was?
I know that we saw Todd McKeon.
We saw Todd McKee, Ted Capwell, on Melrose Place. And we saw Ronnie Shell, who played Frank Armstead, on an episode of Good and Evil, which we started watching after Terry Garr passed away. And I'd completely forgotten that Lane Davies starred in that with her. Mason Capwell. Another Lane in that show is Lane Smith, who played Perry White on Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, in which Lane Davies played Tempest. And another cast member of Good and Evil is Sherman Howard, who played Lex Luthor on Superboy. So that's all Superman and Superboy related crossovers there. I can't remember who we saw on Falcon Crest. It was 1 or 2 weeks in a row, just recently. Just after the earthquake episode. Anyway, back to Santa Barbara. After Cece and Sophia sleep together, Cece asks her about the gun that he found in the nightstand the night before. And, of course, she says she's never seen it before. But they both immediately suspect that Gina may have planted it there and that she is actually alive. And she put it there to sow some dissent between them. It's interesting that they come to that idea very quickly. And then they conclude that they have to continue with the wedding as if nothing has gone wrong because they don't want to spook whoever might have the tape. They are hoping that if they just assume Gina's dead, that at some point the person with the tape will want to make a deal with them. And Sophia suggests that perhaps Gina's ghost will come stomping in to stop the wedding. Eden is flying over the Channel Islands. She is piloting a plane of some kind, looking for Cruz. And Victoria leaves Cruz to try and make a signal, but she returns saying it's too foggy. Eden returns home and reports it's too foggy to see anything. Cece and Sophia decide not to tell her about Gina. So that's kind of interesting. Keith asks Mason where Eden is. Now this goes to my idea that I think Keith is interested in Eden romantically, and that he's trying to, I don't know, maybe somehow figure out a way, with Cruz out of the picture, to go after Eden.
Well, wasn't he kind of flirty with her from the beginning?
I know recently he started to again. Mason wonders why Keith didn't file a police report if he thought that Gina was dead. Keith says that they both know that Lily Light is the more likely suspect. Mason tells Lily to give up that tape if she has it, and she says she doesn't have it. He then runs into Brick and asks if he was with Santana last night, and Brick says no. Mason tells Cece and Sophia that they can rule out Keith because he didn't try to blackmail them. He suggests that Santana perhaps also qualifies as a suspect now. And then Cece gives Mason the gun that they found planted in the room. Mason asks, are you going to go ahead with the wedding rehearsal? And Cece says, we have to keep up appearances. And Mason says, or disappearances. So it looks like that is their plan. Not to go to the police. Just pretend everything's going fine. Haley tells Ted that everyone should be out looking for Gina, but Ted says that Cece and Mason want to keep it quiet because that could jeopardize finding the tape. But he suggests they use the yacht to go and look for Cruz. It's a way to distract her from the idea that Gina might be dead. Haley reports Gina missing to Paul. Paul questions Cece, and Cece says, oh, we're in the middle of planning a wedding. Gina's probably out shopping. Come back after 2. That's when we're doing the rehearsal. Paul says she'll be here there. They kind of just gloss over that. So Sophia suspects that Haley is the one who called Paul, and she comes up with a plan to have Lily try to impersonate Gina and have Paul call her and confirm that she's not missing. Brick, meanwhile, has started following Lily. I think he thinks that Lily will lead him to Gina. I forget why he would want Gina now. Maybe he wants to.
I don't know. It's been months, I think, since we watched this. I don't actually remember any of it.
It's December 13th today, and we watched this on November 12th, so it's been a month. Lily has stashed Gina in a barn that she owns. I don't know where that came from. Is it like Warren's barn? Gina has a dream about Cece stabbing her at the wedding as Air Supply's song Sweet Dreams plays. When she wakes up, she finds Air Supply rehearsing in the barn. And they tell her that they rent the barn from Lily as a rehearsal space.
That was actually a highlight for me, seeing Air Supply.
I was teasing there were going to be some guest stars coming up. I bet you didn't guess it was going to be Air Supply. Gina says, I'm a very influential woman. I don't always sleep in barns. And then she invites them to play at her wedding. She says, you've heard of C.C. Capwell? They have not. Well, you've heard of Ronald and Nancy Reagan. They're my neighbors. They're probably going to be at the wedding. This actually kind of intrigues them. And I think they are contemplating actually playing at the wedding to meet the Reagans. Mm-hmm. And then they ask if she can cook them breakfast. Lily arrives with Gina's wedding dress. Lily says, everyone thinks you're dead. And Gina says, too bad we don't have time to have someone charged with murder. And then Lily says she has to make a phone call and asks Gina to coach her. So I guess Lily has decided to go along with their plan to have Lily pretend to be Gina to talk to Paul. Brick has followed Lily to the barn and calls Santana from a payphone to confirm. She led me right to her. So yeah, I really can't remember why Brick wants Gina. Unless he wants, does he want the tape in order to maybe trade it for Santana getting Brandon? I don't know. Maybe that's something that hasn't been said out loud, but that could be a reason. Paul returns at the appointed time looking for Gina, and Cece answers the conveniently ringing phone and says, oh, it's Gina. He tells Gina that everyone's looking for her. Meanwhile, Gina is listening in as Lily is impersonating her on the other end of the phone. And Gina says, no one will ever buy this, and grabs the phone from Lily. So now Gina, pretending to be Lily, pretending to be Gina, talks to Cece and Paul. And Paul is suspicious of the whole thing and asks for her social security number, which, of course, Gina knows. Keith is watching this whole thing and wonders to Mason how he managed to pull that off. And he seems a bit shocked that Lily would know Gina's social security number. So I suspect Keith may quickly put together that it's really Gina. Gina tells Lily about Air Supply and asks for her help to put on her dress and to check with CC if the Reagans will be coming. I don't know, yeah, that would be kind of a weird thing for Lily, who no one at the Capos likes, to just show up and say, oh, the Reagans coming to the wedding. Of course, I guess if Cece's thinking it'll be between him and Sophia, he wouldn't mind inviting the Reagans. But I think he would probably avoid it, knowing it's probably going to be a fiasco. On the yacht, Haley gets a call from Paul telling her that he just talked to Gina and she's shopping in Los Angeles. So then Haley feels free to reveal to Ted that she's the one who called Paul. Ted says, I brought you here so you wouldn't do something like this. Our whole relationship is one of mistrust. And I just was reminded they actually got married recently. So, next thing we see, Ted walk into the lighthouse. So apparently he's randomly found the right island and managed to dock in the fog and check out the lighthouse. He tells Victoria that he docked the boat on the other side of the island, and it'll take him 2 hours to go and come back with some first aid equipment. Cruz, of course, starts to hallucinate about Eden again, and Victoria kisses him. I don't think they've ever made it clear if they've actually had sex, but I think that the implication is at least one of these times, especially perhaps this one now when she has 2 hours left before they're rescued.
Do you think he would be able to perform in that way if he's been so heavily drugged?
I don't know. I guess if it's like morphine or something. I don't know. The Coast Guard is on the CB with Ted, and they said, "Oh, Cruz shouldn't be moved. You should just plan to spend the night docked there till we can get someone there." So I think this will leave another night for Victoria and Cruz, and a night for Haley and Ted on the yacht, I guess. Haley sets off to the lighthouse with the supplies. Eden tells Keith she wanted to go on that boat, and somehow, Cruz kicked her off, but Victoria made it on there. Keith says it's bad enough to think that you lost Cruz, but to think you lost him to Victoria. But you've got to go on with your life. I ruined my life for my sister. I did everything to hurt Cruz. I lost my job, probably deserved it. The point is to go on. You, me, all of us. So I think that was his way of somehow putting it into her mind. They should somehow go on together. I feel like Eden's not over Cruz enough for that to be the case. But, you know, Kirk Cranston wheedled his way in there eventually, so maybe Keith will too.
Yeah, you never know.
The wedding rehearsal starts. Sophia offers to stand in for Gina. Santana arrives to ominous music. Keith tells Eden the Coast Guard has reported that Cruz has been found. Eden hugs Keith. Haley arrives at the lighthouse to find Victoria kissing Cruz. Those are our cliffhangers. And I guess we'll be having a wedding soon. This was a Wednesday episode, so maybe Friday will be the wedding. And we had a full cast credits today, and same as usual, Rosa's in the credits, Sophia Capwell Armonti is in the credits, and Kelly is in the credits. And Air Supply is Robin. Air Supply is Russell Hitchcock, and Air Supply is Graham Russell, and the Minister was played by Raleigh Bond. An Air Supply performance of Sweet Dreams furnished by Arista Records. So that is it for this Wednesday episode. Anything you want to add?
No.
All right. We'll be back after we watch episode 585. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
I, Gina DeMott Capwell, take thee, Channing Creighton Capwell, for every cent he's got.
Welcome back.
Hello.
To episode 585 of Misha Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. We watched episode 585 of Santa Barbara, originally aired Thursday, November 13th, 1986. The Coast Guard has arrived and Cruz is being taken to the hospital by EMTs. Haley can't look Victoria in the eyes because of what she witnessed. Mm-hmm. Eden asks Victoria if Cruz invited her to come along on that trip, and Victoria says, no, I was hiding in the closet. Tells the whole embarrassing story. Cruz tells Eden he's not sure what's real and what's a hallucination, as he is still going in and out of it, even though he's in the hospital. Haley finds out that phone call from Gina was faked. Victoria phones Haley to ask her not to say anything about what she saw, but when Haley reacts coldly to Victoria, Ted figures out the whole thing, because he had seen some glances between Haley and Victoria in the hospital earlier. And yeah, he just puts it all together. Haley refuses to answer. He goes, What? You got something against Victoria? What? Did you see something? I mean, the only time that you and I weren't together was when you walked into the white. Did you see Cruz and Victoria in the light? Did you see them making love? So he basically worked the whole thing out from no reaction from Haley.
Yeah, that was pretty clever of Ted, actually, because he really didn't get any clues.
Just that one look between Haley and Victoria, I guess, must have been gnawing at the back of his head.
Yeah.
Lily helps Gina prepare for the wedding, but refuses to give her the tape until they get to the church. And there's still some evidence that neither of them quite trusts each other, or at least we're not certain who trusts whom. Mason tells Santana that she can have Brandon if she has the tape. Brick finds Santana with a gun. Santana says it's not loaded, she just wants to scare Gina into telling her where the tape is. And Brick decides to let her go, having told Santana, of course, where Gina is hiding. Santana finds Gina, and under threat of being shot by the unloaded gun, Gina says Lily's the one who has the tape. She's had it this whole time. And then Santana ties Gina up and pushes her into a pigsty. So Gina's beautiful wedding dress, which she's been wearing since the last episode, is covered in substance that they made several sideways references to.
Yeah, we get a lot of scenes of Gina in this gorgeous dress. And she's in a barn, she's trying it on, she's modeling it for Lily Light. She's pushed into a pigsty. She's tied up at one point in the wedding dress.
They somehow Lily finds a giant old mirror in the barn for Gina to check herself out in. I'm thinking, I bet if we look hard enough, that mirror was in that same place where Nick and Kelly were holed up in the old ghost town. Mm-hmm. Same distressed look. Cece cancels all of Gina's wedding plans. He decides that even though they are going to wait until 2 o'clock, which is the time that Gina is supposed to arrive for her wedding, he didn't want all those guests there. He didn't want all the extras. But they are actually in L.A. at the place that Gina picked out, and I'm not sure what church that was. Maybe it's the one we visited this summer when we were touring the locations. Mm-hmm. Just didn't recognize it from that angle. And Cece is angry with Mason when he finds out he told Santana she could have Brandon in exchange for the tape. Sophia just tries to point out, it's for Kelly, it's for Kelly. Well, Cece arrives at the church and it's empty except for Air Supply, who are performing Stars in Your Eyes. Mason says, how'd they get here? Cece says, I guess Gina hired them.
Now, I was thinking that we still kind of think Gina's dead, right?
Yeah.
And Air Supply has just been meeting with her like the
if
day
only
before.
They would talk to Air Supply.
Yeah.
About when did Gina hire you? A few weeks ago when she was still alive?
I would have thought there would be some slight curiosity about Air Supply being there.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Lily told Air Supply not to let on that they met Gina. Fiona Figg shows up. We haven't seen her for a little while. She wonders where Gina is. Cece says he wants to wait until exactly 2 o'clock and then pretend that Gina phoned to call the wedding off. But Mason points out that what if someone is finding Gina's body at this very moment? Mm-hmm. And then when Cece claims to have received a call from her too, he'll be the number one suspect in the murder. So, it's still not quite clear what will happen when the 2 o'clock deadline arrives and Gina hasn't arrived yet. Mm-hmm. It's 10 minutes to 2 at one point. And of course, no one knows except Lily that Gina is coming. Speaking of Lily arrives all ready to perform the ceremony as Gina had promised her. But of course, Mason finds it odd that she showed up all in her white robes, carrying a Bible. And Lily can't really let on that she's going to be performing the ceremony because that would imply that she knows that Gina's alive. So Lily kind of hems and haws just a bit about things. And I think Mason's suspicious, but maybe he's too distracted by things to put things together. And when Mason walks out of the room, Lily reveals that the tape is hidden inside her Bible. Mm-hmm. Santana!
Turn right onto Redford Street.
Okay. Santana tells Brick that Lily has the tape. And Brick tells Santana to maybe chill out at home now and let him take over and try to get the tape from Lily. He knows how to handle her. And I guess she's worried Santana will try the same tactic that she did with Gina and it won't work. As he starts to leave and then returns and kisses her on the cheek in a somewhat awkward bit of blocking there. So I don't know what that was, if that was all character or the actor forgot, but anyway, it seems somewhat awkward, but also maybe indicates, that maybe Brick is interested in Santana, which we had kind of thought.
I thought it was odd that Brick was like, I can handle Lily Light, when his handling of Lily Light has been, he got his clock cleaned in that interview with her.
Turn left onto East Hastings Street.
On the radio. And, he's tried to strangle her a couple times, I think.
Yeah. I think maybe he's just worried Santana will end up getting herself arrested.
Yeah.
I don't know if Brick necessarily knows where Lily is, but I assume he'll come stopping into that church and meet Air Supply. The pig that Gina has named Little Sophia has chewed through the rope tying Gina's hands. Gina says, "What do I care what I look or smell like? Here comes the bride. So I don't know how far out of town she is, but I feel like 10 minutes is not going to be enough time to get her to the church on time. So we'll see Gina racing to the church. Lily will probably stall because she knows Gina's alive, so she'll probably try to stop Mason and Cece from stopping everything. But without revealing she knows Gina's alive, and maybe Cece and Sophia will try to get married. Which is possible too, but I don't know if they want Lily to perform the service. And that is it for this episode. Air Supply performance of Stars in Your Eyes, furnished by Arista Records. So, yeah. Tomorrow is the wedding day. Whether someone will get married, Gina, Cece, Sophia, remains to be seen. Whether we have another number from Air Supply, I don't remember. And whether Air Supply reveals that Gina is alive, I can't recall either. So we'll be back for the Friday, November 14th episode, number 586. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 586 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, November 14th, 1986. Despite Lily's protests, Cece calls off the wedding and says he's going to send the guests home. So I guess some guests did show up, but they never paid any extras to show up, so we never saw anyone. He tells the people that he's as disappointed as they are that the wedding's not going to happen. And they head back to Santa Barbara. Yeah, I think I'd forgotten that the church was going to be in L.A., but Gina is definitely still in Santa Barbara. Mason asks Lily if she still has the keys to the guest house, and Lily says, why? Did you find a gun under Sophia's pillow? I think she just... I don't think she knew about that from Gina. I think she just sort of thought it's the sort of thing Gina might do. So now Mason was quite suspicious of that. He tells her that if that tape shows up after tonight, she's going to go to jail for withholding evidence. So if she has it, she better give it to him by the end of the day. Gina frees herself from the pigsty, and we see her waiting at a bus stop that says Santa Barbara on it, and she takes the bus to Los Angeles and finds the church empty, except for Air Supply, who are playing Black and Blue. This is now the third song they've played 3 days in a row, and I guess they're promoting these songs on the new album.
And we hear quite a bit of Black and Blue throughout the episode, actually, which is appropriate because, well, Gina's looking quite black and blue, certainly throughout this episode.
Yeah, she hoses herself off with a hose in the barn, so she still kind of smells like pigs.
And plus, she's probably been on that Santa Barbara bus for a couple hours.
Well, the guy sitting at the bus stop when she goes, sits down to wait for the bus, he wanders off quite quickly because she still smells like pig manure. She hitches a ride to back to the LA city limits with a flower delivery guy, and then hitchhikes most of the way back to Santa Barbara, and ends up getting in the back of a pickup truck that has bags and bags of manure that she has to sit on. So it's a manure-based voyage to her wedding. She hitchhikes most of the way and then spots a guy with a motorcycle and pays him $95 to take her the rest of the way into Santa Barbara.
And this is actually kind of significant that her last phase of this journey is on a motorcycle, because we will be hearing some very prominent motorcycle noises at the end of the episode.
Brick waits for Lily in Gina's motel room, and he tries to talk her into giving him the tape for Brandon's sake, and she brings up all these negative points about Santana, and he brings up all these negative points about Gina for being Brandon's mother. And then he reminds her that she said she'd do anything to make up for Amy's death. And then Lily says, I have the tape with me.
Now, I was wondering, remember, she has kind of been threatened by prosecution as well, so I wondered if that might be a little bit of a enticement to give up the tape.
I hadn't thought about that. Haley asks Ted not to tell Eden about Victoria and Cruz, and Ted says that if it was him, he'd want to know. And this is what made me realize that it's actually very clever of the writers to give Ted this piece of information, because he's the kind of guy who's going to agonize over doing the right thing with this. So I suspect maybe he's going to be the loose cannon and not Haley who ends up telling Eden.
And Ted McKee's very good at looking kind of anguished about these things. So I think we're going to be getting a lot of that in the near future.
Different from his character on Melrose Place, where he was hitting on, was it Allison that he was used to go to school with or something?
I think so.
Ted confronts Victoria first and ends up telling her that she's like poison. Victoria, of course, is begging everyone not to tell Eden and Cruz what happened. Actually, they say Eden. Or she says, oh, no, that's not what happened. Like, she's trying to make it seem like what Ted thinks he knows isn't what he knows. Keith tells Paul that call he took yesterday was from Lily, not Gina. Nope, that's wrong. Sorry, I'm going to remove that. I had removed that, but it somehow got pasted back in. Keith reveals to Haley that call that Paul made yesterday was not to Gina, but it was to Lily. Then Haley tells Cece that she wishes that he was the one that was killed when she confronts him over the scheme to trick Paul. Haley then tells Paul that call was from Lily, not Gina. Keith is just flitting around, chatting with people all day.
He's trying to stir up trouble where he can.
He next finds Victoria at the hospital and says, oh, must be heaven to be marooned on an island for 3 days. So I think he's already thinking what might have happened. And she replies, I'm glad it wasn't you, if that's what you mean. Victoria tries to get Cruz to stick to his plan of breaking up with Eden. But Cruz is like, I don't know what I was thinking. Why would I break up with her? And also, as he's recovering in his bed, Cruz keeps flashing back to the kissing Eden when he was hallucinating and kissing Victoria. And I think he suspects that the kissing of Victoria might not have been a hallucination. And Victoria tries to leave when Cruz directly asks her what went on. And then when she does that, he says, did we sleep together? So, I guess, I assume, I don't know, will Victoria tell him the truth? I mean, I think she must know that Cruz remembers something, so saying no would be probably counterproductive. It would just delay things a little bit. But I don't know if our worry is that Eden would find out, because technically that probably would make Eden even more mad, which is probably to Victoria's benefit.
I guess I'm sort of wondering, maybe it was mentioned, maybe I missed it, if Cruz realizes, or if they realize that he's being given a lot of morphine over the course of being trapped on the island, because I would think that would give him pause to think about, well, what actually happened. Well,
because he did bring that up. Oh, I remember asking you not to give me any more shots or something like that. So, yeah, this conversation might actually take up the whole episode, considering everyone else is at a wedding. Keith finds Eden at the bar and tells her that Cruz isn't worth it. Eden says, I'm not going to let Victoria win, and Keith says, I think that's already happened. So now he's trying to spread his rumor/truth that Victoria and Cruz probably slept together on the island. And of course, he's still trying to go after Eden himself. So he says, don't you know when someone's trying to comfort you? The wedding reconvenes in the Capwell living room, which I think is a lot more ornate than the last time we saw it. And there's no fireplace, I don't think, where it should be. So I think they moved the living room to the back, right, where the dining room used to be. Because I think the living room used to be the second one. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't see, maybe the angle was off, but I didn't see the fireplace. There's tons more stuff in that room. But it's the one at the back right of the red wall. Eden swings out to the little wicker table there to grab 3 white carnations to put in Ted, Cece, and Mason's boutonnieres. And no one associates those with Peter Flint anymore, I guess.
No, we did, but I guess the Catwalls have gotten over all of that.
And just before the ceremony gets to the end, people start getting distracted by the sound of a motorcycle coming up the driveway. Mason goes to the front door, sees Gina on the back of a motorcycle, slams the door, and he starts doing up these giant bolts we've never seen before.
That was a really
completely lock
great
the
scene. Door.
It was quite hilarious. Comedy bolts have been installed by the prop people. So, yeah, I imagine Gina will be banging on that door as Cece and Sophia try desperately to finish. But I think both of them, if they realize that's Gina, must know that their only chance of getting the tape is Gina. So I feel like they may end up stopping the wedding to let her in. And then I guess Gina will assume she's going to marry Cece. So.
And then Brick can come in with the tape.
Brick to the rescue.
I guess I was trying to remember how the ceremony goes, and it actually seemed to me they were a little farther along in it, that they could probably finish it. I think they've gotten past the part of anyone with objections, which is where usually people jump in and...
Yeah, I mean, they were cutting back and forth between the wedding.
Yeah, it was hard to
and
tell.
Gina coming to Santa Barbara. Obviously, the Gina stuff must have happened, far earlier for her to get 20 miles during that ceremony. Mm-hmm. And up Park Lane to the Capwell house.
But it's really, as throughout the last little bit of the episode, as Gina's making her way up there, they're kind of showing them getting ready for the wedding. And as a viewer, you're thinking, come on, get on with it. Stop mingling and, popping in your carnations and get on with saying those vows.
Yeah, I mean, Lily had tried to stop them from leaving L.A., saying, everyone's late for weddings, but I guess she, couldn't reveal too much without giving everything away. And that is the end of this episode. We had a full cast credits again, and everything is pretty much the same. And of course, we had our air supply, Russell Hitchcock and Graham Russell. And then Minister was played by Raleigh Bond again. And air supply performance of Black and Blue, furnished by Arista Records. So, looking at these credits reminded me we haven't seen Jane and Carolyn and Lionel.
Mm-hmm, it's been a while.
Alice for a while. And Nick. So, and Brian. Mm-hmm. So they've focused this week on the wedding, although we've taken so many months to watch this one week that we've probably forgotten something. But this is the end of a week.
One person we have seen, though, in our other viewing, on a fairly regular basis, actually, is James Hong.
Yes, we're watching Switch, and he plays a chef in Charlie Callis's bar. So, yes, we saw him again this week, acting angry. Mm-hmm. And, of course, he played 2 minor roles in Santa Barbara, but he's one of my favorite. What are they called?
Character actors?
Character actors. So, and that is it for week 120 of Santa Barbara. Next week is week 121, and in week 122, I believe, is Thanksgiving week, and there's only 3 episodes. So we may do our summary of the Santa Barbara reunion that week. All right, that's it for week 120. We'll see you next week, and we'll find out if anyone gets married. We'll see you for week 121. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, this isn't a girl Friday. How's Robinson Crusoe in there?
Why don't you ask him yourself?
Oh, Whirl, you must be still floating on there. It must have been heaven to be marooned for 3 days on an island with a man you love.
Well, I'm glad it wasn't you, if that's what you mean.